Have you ever mixed two different garden sprays together just to save a little time? What if I told you that simple shortcut might be the exact reason your plants are dying? Welcome to the channel. Today we are talking about a massive mistake that almost every gardener makes at least once. We are diving deep into why you must absolutely read the instructions before mixing any agricultural products. I promise that by the end of this video, you will look at your garden shed in a completely different way. You will learn the hidden secrets of chemical compatibility that can save your harvest and your wallet. Let us start with a controversial statement. Most of the miracle garden potions you see on the internet are actually toxic plant killers. Yes, you heard that right. Mixing random ingredients without reading the label is a recipe for disaster. So, tell me in the comments below, have you ever tried a homemade garden spray mix that ended up burning your leaves? Let me know, and let us figure out why it happened. Before we get into the details, we need to understand the history of garden treatments. For decades, farmers and gardeners have used various substances to protect their crops from pests and diseases. In the early days, people used very simple, single-ingredient treatments. But as agriculture evolved, scientists developed complex formulas. We now have specific fertilizers, powerful fungicides, and targeted insecticides. To save time and labor, the concept of a tank mix was born. A tank mix is simply combining two or more products in the same sprayer tank to apply them all at once. It sounds incredibly efficient. However, this efficiency comes with a huge catch. Each product is a precisely balanced chemical formulation. When you introduce a foreign substance into that balance, the results can be highly unpredictable. Manufacturers spend years testing their products, but they cannot test every single combination you might invent in your backyard. That is exactly why the label is not just a suggestion. It is the law of the garden. Have you ever felt like a mad scientist in your garden shed? You have a bottle of fertilizer in one hand. You have a bottle of bug spray in the other. You think to yourself that mixing them together will save you so much time. Why walk around the garden twice when you can do it all in one single trip? This is exactly where the trouble begins. The temptation to create the ultimate garden potion is incredibly strong. We all lead busy lives. We want our tomatoes to be huge, and we want the aphids gone yesterday. But treating your garden sprayer like a magical cauldron is a recipe for absolute disaster. When you pour two different liquids into that tank without knowing how they interact, you are playing a dangerous game of chemical roulette. You might think you are giving your plants a boost, but in reality, you might be brewing a toxic soup that will strip the leaves right off your prized rose bushes. The manufacturers spend millions of dollars testing their products. They write specific instructions for a reason. Ignoring those instructions because you are in a hurry is the #1 mistake made by both beginners and seasoned gardeners. It is not just about saving time. It is about understanding that chemistry does not care about your schedule. If two chemicals are meant to react violently, they will do exactly that, right there in your plastic sprayer. This is the harsh reality of shortcut gardening. Let us talk about physical incompatibility. This is the most obvious sign that you have made a terrible mistake. Imagine you pour a powder into your sprayer, and then you add an oil-based liquid. You shake it up, expecting a smooth mixture. Instead, you look inside and see a thick, gooey sludge. It might look like cottage cheese, or maybe it forms a hard layer at the bottom. This happens because the physical properties of the two products clash. The carriers and solvents in one product might cause the active ingredients in the other product to separate and clump together. When this happens, your mixture is completely ruined. You cannot spray cottage cheese out of a fine nozzle. Your equipment will clog instantly. You will spend hours taking apart your sprayer, scrubbing tiny filters with a toothbrush, and trying to dissolve the mess. More importantly, you have just wasted expensive products. When you read the instructions, the label will specifically warn you against mixing certain formulations. For example, mixing wettable powders with emulsifiable concentrates often leads to this exact nightmare. Always pay attention to the formulation types listed on the bottle. A little reading saves a lot of scrubbing. But physical clumping is only the visible part of the problem. The hidden danger is chemical incompatibility. This is far more insidious because the liquid in your sprayer might look perfectly fine. It might be clear and smooth, but on a molecular level, a war is happening. When you mix certain products, they can undergo a chemical reaction that completely neutralizes their active ingredients. You might think you are spraying a powerful fungicide to save your cucumbers. But because you mixed it with the wrong fertilizer, the fungicide is now just useless, expensive water. You spray your plants, feel good about your hard work, and then watch in horror as the disease spreads anyway. In other cases, the chemical reaction makes the mixture far more toxic than intended. It breaks down safe compounds into aggressive salts or acids. This invisible danger is exactly why internet recipes can be so risky. Someone might tell you to mix baking soda, soap, and a commercial pesticide. They do not realize that the alkaline baking soda is rapidly degrading the pesticide molecule. Always read the label to check for chemical compatibility warnings. If the manufacturer says, "Do not mix with alkaline substances," you must obey that rule. Now we must discuss phytotoxicity. This is a fancy scientific word that simply means plant poisoning. When you mix incompatible chemicals or apply them at the wrong concentration, you can severely damage the plant tissue. This damage is often irreversible. A perfect example of this is the classic mistake of mixing sulfur with horticultural oils. Both are excellent organic treatments on their own, but if you mix them together or even apply them within 2 weeks of each other, you will destroy your plants. The oil helps the sulfur penetrate deep into the leaf tissue, burning it from the inside out. Within a day, your beautiful green leaves will turn brown, crisp up, and fall off. Phytotoxicity can also happen when you mix too many foliar fertilizers together. You are essentially dumping a massive load of salt directly onto delicate cells. The water is drawn out of the plant, causing severe dehydration and scorched edges. Reading the instructions prevents this heartache. The label will clearly state if a product is known to cause leaf burn under certain conditions. It will tell you the maximum safe dosage and the exact products you must avoid. Do not let your garden become a graveyard of burned plants. If you are determined to mix products and the labels do not forbid it, you still must perform a jar test. This is a critical step that professionals never skip, but home gardeners rarely know about. A jar test is a small-scale experiment to check for physical compatibility before you ruin a whole tank of spray. Here is how you do it. Take a clean glass jar. Fill it with the exact same water you plan to use in your sprayer. Add the chemicals one by one in the correct proportions, just like a miniature version of your final mix. Put the lid on and invert the jar gently a few times. Now put the jar down and wait for at least 15 minutes. Watch what happens. Does it separate into distinct layers? Does it heat up? Does it form flakes, gel, or sludge at the bottom? If the mixture remains smooth and uniform, you have passed the physical compatibility test. If it turns into a bizarre science experiment, you have just saved yourself a massive headache. You can safely throw away the small jar instead of ruining your expensive sprayer. The jar test is your best friend. But remember, it only checks for physical clumping. It cannot tell you if the chemicals are neutralizing each other. You still need the label for that. Let us dive into a topic most people ignore completely: the water you use. You might think water is just water, but the chemistry of your water supply can drastically change how your garden chemicals perform. The most critical factor is water pH. Many public water supplies and private wells have hard, alkaline water with a pH above 7. This might be fine for drinking, but it is terrible for many pesticides. There is a process called alkaline hydrolysis. When you mix certain sensitive chemicals into alkaline water, the high pH begins to break apart the active molecules immediately. Some insecticides can lose 50% of their effectiveness in just 10 minutes when mixed with high pH water. If you fill your tank, mix your chemicals, and then go take a phone call, your expensive treatment might be completely useless by the time you start spraying. This is why reading the instructions is vital. The label will tell you the ideal pH range for the mixture. You might need to add a buffering agent to acidify your water before you add the chemicals. If you skip this step, you are just spraying expensive, useless liquid while the pests continue to eat your garden. The order in which you add products to your tank matters immensely. It is not like making soup where you can throw everything in at once. If you add liquids before powders, the powders might clump up and never dissolve. The agricultural industry uses a standard mixing order to prevent these disasters. It is often referred to by the acronym WALES. First, you add wettable powders and water-dispersible granules. You give them plenty of time to fully dissolve in the water. Next, you add your liquid flowables. After that, you add emulsifiable concentrates. Finally, you add any surfactant solutions. You must agitate the tank gently between each step. If you do this backward, the oils from the concentrates will coat the dry powders, creating little waterproof balls of chemicals that will instantly clog your nozzles. Where do you find the correct mixing order for your specific products? You guessed it, right there in the instructions. The manufacturer has already figured out the sequence that keeps everything suspended perfectly. By following their exact steps, you ensure an even application across your garden, meaning every leaf gets the correct dose of protection. Now let us talk about the rise of biological products. Many modern gardeners use biological insecticides or biofungicides. These are not synthetic chemicals. They are living organisms. They contain beneficial bacteria, specific fungi, or tiny nematodes that actively hunt down pests or outcompete bad diseases. These are fantastic products, but they require a completely different mindset. If you decide to mix a living biological product with a harsh chemical fungicide or a strong synthetic fertilizer, you are going to commit microbial murder. The harsh chemicals will instantly kill the beneficial organisms right inside your spray tank. It is like putting a goldfish into a bowl of bleach. You cannot expect the living product to work if you destroy it before it even reaches the plant. The instructions on biological products are incredibly strict about tank mixing. They will often state that the spray tank must be completely free of chemical residue before use. They will explicitly list which chemicals are fatal to the spores or bacteria. If you want to harness the power of nature, you have to play by nature's rules, and those rules are printed on the back of the bottle. There is one particular chemical that deserves its own special warning: copper fungicide. Copper has been used for over 100 years to fight fungal and bacterial diseases. It is highly effective and widely used in organic gardening. But copper is also the ultimate diva of the garden shed. It does not play well with others. Copper acts as a heavy metal in solution. If you mix copper with products that are highly acidic, it causes a massive release of copper ions. This sudden flood of free copper is incredibly toxic to plant foliage. It will cause severe burning, spotting, and defoliation. Never mix copper with products containing alliette or highly acidic foliar fertilizers. Additionally, mixing copper with oils or certain soaps can also increase its penetration to a dangerous level. When you buy a copper product, the instruction booklet will usually have a long list of things you must avoid. Do not try to outsmart the copper. It will win, and your plants will lose. Treat copper as a solo artist. Apply it by itself, let it dry, and wait the recommended number of days before applying anything else. Let us consider the impact of temperature on your spray mixes. The environment around you changes how chemicals behave. If you decide to mix and spray your products on a blazing hot summer afternoon, you are asking for trouble. Heat accelerates chemical reactions. A mixture that might be perfectly stable at 70 degrees can become volatile and phytotoxic at 95 degrees. When the sun is beating down on your plants, their pores are open, and they are already under stress. Spraying a complex tank mix under these conditions is a surefire way to cause severe leaf scorch. The water evaporates too quickly, leaving behind a highly concentrated, burning layer of chemical salts on the leaf surface. This is a common warning found in almost every instruction manual. Manufacturers usually advise spraying in the early morning or late evening, when temperatures are cooler and the sun is less intense. The label will often give a specific temperature cutoff, warning you not to apply the product if it is over 85 or 90 degrees. Respect the weather, respect the chemistry, and always read the temperature guidelines before you mix. We need to address the topic of foliar fertilizers. Feeding plants through their leaves is a great way to give them a quick nutrient boost. Many gardeners love to mix liquid kelp, fish emulsion, and micronutrients into one super feed. But you must be incredibly careful. Fertilizers are essentially salts. When you mix multiple fertilizers together, the overall salt index of the solution skyrockets. If the salt concentration gets too high, it reverses the osmotic pressure of the plant cells. Instead of the plant absorbing water and nutrients, the salty spray actually sucks moisture out of the leaves. This causes massive dehydration and necrotic dead spots. Furthermore, some fertilizer elements lock each other up. For instance, mixing a calcium-heavy fertilizer with a phosphorus-heavy fertilizer can create insoluble calcium phosphate. This forms a hard precipitate that the plant cannot absorb at all. You end up spraying literal rocks onto your leaves. The instructions on premium fertilizers will usually provide a compatibility chart. They will tell you exactly which nutrients can be combined and which must be applied separately to prevent these nasty reactions. Another crucial detail hidden in the instructions is the shelf life of a mixed solution. Once you mix chemicals with water, a ticking clock begins. Many people mix a large batch of pest spray, use half of it, and leave the rest in the shed for next weekend. This is a terrible idea. As we discussed earlier with water pH, chemical degradation begins immediately upon mixing. Within 24 to 48 hours, the active ingredients in many common garden products will have completely broken down. Some products even become dangerous as they degrade, forming new, toxic byproducts. Biological products are even more sensitive. If you leave living bacteria mixed in water without a food source or oxygen, They will suffocate and die within hours. The label will almost always tell you to mix only the amount you need for immediate use. It will state that the mixture should not be stored. Throwing away leftover mixed spray is painful, but spraying degraded, useless, or toxic sludge on your plants next week is much worse. Always calculate your exact needs before you open the bottles. Let us take a moment to talk about your personal safety. This is not just about protecting your tomatoes. It is about protecting your lungs, your skin, and your nervous system. When you are pouring and mixing concentrated garden chemicals, you are at the highest risk of exposure. A splash from a concentrated bottle is far more dangerous than a mist from the diluted spray. When you mix different products, you might accidentally create toxic fumes without realizing it. The instructions are your primary shield against these hazards. The label has a specific section detailing the required personal protective equipment. It will tell you if you need chemical-resistant gloves, protective eyewear, or a respirator mask. Never assume that a product is safe just because you bought it at a local garden centre. Even organic and natural products can cause severe eye damage or allergic reactions in their concentrated forms. Reading the safety instructions before you open the cap is the smartest thing you can do. Gardening is a wonderful hobby, but it is not worth risking your long-term health because you skipped a paragraph of text. Have you ever heard of surfactants, stickers, or spreaders? These are products called adjuvants. They are designed to be mixed with pesticides or fertilizers to make them work better. A surfactant reduces the surface tension of water, allowing the spray droplets to spread out flat over the leaf rather than beading up and rolling off. A sticker helps the chemicals stick to the leaf through rain and wind. Adding an adjuvant sounds like a great idea every time, right? Wrong. This is another area where reading the instructions is critical. Some commercial pesticides already have surfactants built into their formula. If you add extra surfactant, you can actually cause the spray to become too slippery, and it will all run off the leaf and drip onto the ground. Or worse, the extra penetration can cause the chemical to burn the plant. The label of your main product will explicitly tell you whether you should add an adjuvant, what kind to use, or if you should avoid them entirely. Never blindly add a sticker to your mix just because it sounds helpful. You might be ruining the exact formulation the manufacturer spent years perfecting. Equipment cleaning is an incredibly overlooked part of the mixing process. Let us say you successfully mixed and sprayed a chemical weed killer on your driveway. You rinse the sprayer out with water and put it away. 2 weeks later, you use the same sprayer to mix a foliar fertilizer for your prize-winning giant pumpkins. A few days later, your pumpkins are dead. What happened? Some chemicals, especially herbicides, are incredibly sticky. They bind to the plastic walls and rubber hoses of your sprayer. A simple water rinse does not remove them. When you mix your fertilizer later, the new chemicals and water pull the old herbicide residue off the walls and into your new solution. You accidentally poisoned your own plants through cross-contamination. The instructions will provide specific cleaning protocols. They might tell you to use an ammonia solution, a special tank cleaner, or to triple rinse the equipment. Professional growers often keep entirely separate sprayers, one strictly for herbicides and one for fertilizers and pest control. The label tells you exactly how hard the product is to clean out. Pay attention to it. We must also consider the environmental impact of improper mixing. Your garden is part of a larger ecosystem. When you mix chemicals without understanding their compatibility, you increase the risk of environmental contamination. If a mixture creates a heavy sludge that clogs your sprayer, You now have to dispose of a highly concentrated toxic mess. If you dump it down the drain or pour it in the corner of your yard, it can leach into the groundwater. Furthermore, some chemical combinations can become exceptionally toxic to beneficial insects like bees and butterflies. A single product might be safe for bees once it dries, but mixing it with a certain oil or surfactant might keep it wet and sticky for days, turning your flowers into a deadly trap for pollinators. The environmental hazards section of the instruction booklet is there to protect the world outside your fence. It will detail buffer zones around water sources, toxicity to aquatic life, and warnings about pollinator safety. Being a responsible gardener means reading these warnings and understanding the wider consequences of your tank mix. Let us talk about the myth of the universal internet recipe. Social media is flooded with influencers sharing their secret magic garden sprays. They tell you to mix dish soap, mouthwash, essential oils and fertilizer. They promise it cures everything from aphids to powdery mildew. Here is the brutal truth. These people are usually just getting lucky, or they are not showing you the dead plants off camera. Dish soap is designed to strip grease off plates, not to be sprayed on living plant cuticles. It can easily dissolve the protective waxy layer of the leaf, leaving the plant vulnerable to intense sunburn and severe disease. When you mix household products with agricultural fertilizers, you are completely blind to the chemical reactions occurring. The manufacturers of dish soap do not test for plant compatibility. There is no label for you to read regarding garden safety. Relying on random internet recipes instead of scientifically formulated, clearly labeled garden products is a massive gamble. Stick to the products that come with instructions. At least then, you have a clear, tested roadmap to follow. So, how do you actually read these complex labels? I know they look intimidating. The text is tiny, and it is full of legal jargon. But you only need to look for a few key sections. First, look for the active ingredients list. This tells you exactly what chemical is doing the work. Next, find the section labelled Directions for Use. This is where you find the dosage rates. Look for a specific subsection called Tank Mixing or Compatibility. This is the Holy Grail. It will specifically list known incompatible chemicals. It will tell you the exact order of mixing. Finally, look at the precautionary statements and environmental hazards. This covers your personal safety and the safety of the ecosystem. I highly recommend using your smartphone to take a picture of the label and zoom in so you can actually read the fine print. Some companies even provide QR codes that link to easier-to-read digital documents. Do whatever it takes to access that information. Do not just tear the booklet off the bottle and throw it in the trash. It is the most valuable tool you own. Keeping a garden journal is a habit that separates the amateurs from the experts. When it comes to tank mixing, a journal is your ultimate safeguard. Every time you create a mix, write down the date, the exact products you used, the dosage rates, the weather conditions, and the plants you treated. Why is this so important? Because memory is flawed. If you spray a mix and your plants look amazing a week later, you want to be able to replicate that exact success. If you spray a mix and your plants drop all their leaves, you need to know exactly what you did so you never do it again. Furthermore, if you are rotating different chemicals to prevent pests from building up resistance, your journal tells you what chemical family you used last time. The instructions will often mandate a certain time frame between applications of different chemical classes. You cannot keep track of all that in your head. A simple notebook in your garden shed, paired with the instructions on the bottles, gives you complete control over your plant health management. Ultimately, taking the time to read the instructions is an act of respect. It is respect for the plants you spend so much time nurturing. It is respect for the environment and the delicate balance of beneficial insects in your yard. It is respect for your own health and safety. And frankly, it is respect for your own time and money. Buying premium garden products and then ruining them by mixing them incorrectly is a frustrating waste. The 5 minutes you spend reading the tiny print on the back of a bottle will save you weeks of heartbreak trying to revive burned, poisoned, or diseased plants. The science of agriculture has provided us with incredible tools to grow amazing food and beautiful flowers. But these tools require knowledge to be used correctly. So the next time you are standing in the shed, holding 2 bottles and thinking about saving a trip around the yard, stop. Put 1 bottle down. Open the booklet, read the rules, and mix with confidence. Your garden will thank you. So, there you have it. The hidden world of chemical reactions happening right inside your garden sprayer. We have uncovered how trying to save time with a random tank mix can lead to physical sludge, invisible chemical neutralization, and the absolute destruction of your plants through phytotoxicity. The biggest takeaway today is simple but crucial. The manufacturer's label is not just legal fine print, it is the survival guide for your garden. From checking water pH and doing a jar test, to understanding the exact mixing order, these details make the difference between a thriving harvest and a garden disaster. Thank you so much for watching and learning with us today. If this video saved you from a potential chemical catastrophe, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. Share it with a friend who loves to experiment in their garden. Now, I want to hear from you. What is the wildest gardening myth or homemade spray recipe you have ever heard of? Drop your stories in the comments below and let us discuss it.